Man is an interesting character for us. We've done Spider-Man, we've done X-Men, we've done superpowers.
Many of the Marvel properties have long histories in Hollywood. Iron Man was at least at Fox and New Line before coming back to us. And for whatever reason, you know, the time wasn't right.
It's been a different journey for Marvel since it's really their first real venture coming out as a company, fully financing and releasing Iron Man. And it's a big deal to be a part of this production. So much of the company is now invested into this potential franchise, which is really what these films are meant to be.
But we need a storyteller.
John is a talent in many fields, in front of the camera, behind the camera. But when you look at Maid and Elf and Zathura, that's a track of a filmmaker that is nearing the top of his game.
But very important for us with him is his love for Iron Man. That was the movie he wanted to make.
Iron Man is one of the comics where you have very few purists who have attached themselves to specific storylines. In the case of Iron Man, it's the myth of Iron Man, it's the suit, it's what the suit could do. Things change from time to time with the suit, but there's a basic character that Tony Stark has and a certain look that the suit has.
I went in to meet them and then wound up screen testing for Tony Stark for Iron Man. It was like, I went in the building and everywhere you go, there's another movie you loved and the Spider-Mans and everything. I go, God, it'd be really great if I could do one of these.
It was kind of like an independent director and cast, but, you know, doing this great big film, so it was the best of both worlds.
I'm jealous. Next time.
This is the part of the Marvel offices that they gave us for Iron Man pre-production. Normally, we would, you know, start this. We would rent some office space near a studio. We're about to move to Playa Vista Studios, so this allowed us to sort of get a running start and be close to the people who are part of Marvel Studios here. So it was nice. We had these great digs, and we got to use the meeting spaces. And we're starting to outgrow this space. Here are some different. The evolution of concept art for the suit. These are earlier designs that we didn't go with, but they helped evolve the suit into the final look. The suit evolved over decades, and it wasn't until an artist named Adi Granoff took a whack at the costume and reinvented it that you found a suit that looked more like solid armor, more like something with a military application, almost like a flying machine, and not like a suit that somebody slipped on and was skin tight and happened to be metallic. This suit felt real. It felt like something mechanical, something that was tech-based. And that was the image that I gravitated towards from the whole packet of 40 years of Iron Man images that was given to me.
The suit for the movie is completely different. In my artwork, I try to make things appear functional, but they're not functional because there isn't a real person inside. We spent months and months trying to figure out how different sections bend and intersect, and how there could be a person inside, and if he bends his arm, will it actually break his bones? And I mean, all those details like that. And then the helmet and how the helmet opens, and can the head fit inside the helmet, and then does make the head look too big? I mean, all these things that in a comic book, I mean, I just draw it whatever looks the best.
We have basically the chest piece, which you see on one of the other renderings here, the abdomen piece, which would go on sort of like a tank top. You have the boxer shorts sort of area, and then the leg. And the whole idea is to make each of these components expand so that you can just slip into them as one big piece, and then as you put them on, they would collapse and end up snug on the leg.
Here's Ryan working on some keyframe work from the movie of Tony Stark first waking up in captivity. This is the beginnings of some thoughts for the beginnings of the first gray Iron Man suit. So you can see sort of the chest piece And as you can see, these arm pieces were inspired by this piece of hardware here.
This armature that we got from Stan Winston was basically a starting point to say how, what are the basic pivot points that you would need to be able to move your arms and have as much flexibility as possible.
This is also something that we use to help limit the movement that the performer used when we're doing some mocap tests for the CGI on it. This is sort of a dogfight sequence that happens late in the second act. As we can see, we're sort of cross-cutting between Rhodey, the pilots, and Tony Stark flying. And these have been color-coded and worked on and photocopied because this is part of what was used to be input into the animatic. This was all input into the computer and animated, and you're able to watch it like you would a movie.
I think very early on, John had a very compelling vision for how he wanted to cover the Iron Man action stuff. He wanted to shoot it like we took the Iron Man suit, turned it on, and basically we're flying beside it in a helicopter, and that's how we got Iron Man on camera.
The one thing that we still have over previs and animatics is that you can draw a scene really, really quickly, and you can draw changes really, really quickly, and as it should be. I mean, it's an exploratory part of the process to find the vocabulary of the movie and find the angles you want and come up with the coolest stuff possible.
If anything, that's the comic book artist. He's sort of like, I'm just going to draw. I'm going to make this scene huge, and before you know it, it expands into something that's absolutely unmanageable, unshootable. It'll never go in any schedule. But what you can do from that is take the things in it that you respond to, and that's what John did.
So this is what I was hoping would be my office, but they made an appeal to me that this was the biggest room, so we need a room for all the previs crew. So you have animators, CAD artists, everybody who is involved with taking what we did on the storyboards and translating it into a 3D animation. There are certain shots, like this is a really successful shot here. We like this one a lot. His little lights come on, his flying lights. And they're coming into the Santa Monica Pier. Some of these are a little bit too quick, some of them are a little bit off. The flow is pretty good, but once we refine it in the previs, it will then translate pretty much one for one with the final film. We've seen flying in so many movies, especially through buildings in New York City. We wanted to put this one on the West Coast, where flight sort of began, where you sort of had Hughes aircraft, and sort of keep the tradition of him being a Howard Hughes type character alive. I really like this one, how he's flying over all the buildings. Really feels like you're flying up into space, into the stars. That's really cool. So when we're done with this, it'll actually hopefully translate into the actual movie. And we'll be able to watch some finished film while we're working on the movie and show it to the actors and the crew for morale. That's really great. And the camera shake is pretty strong. That's really good. See, this is exciting. This gives me goosebumps. You're not even fighting a bad guy here. All you're doing is really flying through the air. As I was talking to the people doing the previs, the artists, the storyboard artists, the animatics, it was about how do you really viscerally make you feel as though you're flying? We've all dreamt about flying. How exciting is one of those dreams? It's never boring. I think just the feeling of flying for the first time in a movie like this, if you handle it right, should give you chills. Just seeing him fly, really feeling like you're flying with him, if you cover it the right way, shoot it the right way, and present it to the audience in the right way, it should be an emotional experience. And then when you fight the bad guy, even more fun. But don't blow past that stuff. What's it really like? What would it really be like to get in a suit that could fly? It would be a life-changing experience. Don't lose sight of that. You're making a movie. And movies are about emotion. They're about allowing the audience to experience something they can't in real life. But let them experience it in a real way. And that's the hope. The hope is to ground this thing in reality wherever we can, because it's so superhuman. These heroes are so larger than life that any opportunity we could find to sort of screw it down to reality, we would be hard-pressed to make a movie without taking advantage of those opportunities that you would really feel something about.
generally speaking, if you're making a movie about a billionaire who can go anywhere and who can do anything and has any amount of money to do anything, and you have a restricted budget, and you have to try and create that world that he lives in, that's a big challenge.
He doesn't just have the G5, he has like the 737 private plane. You know, everything is elevated with him. It's not just a house, it's an insane mansion on the bluff in Malibu on a cliff. And so there was a lot of fun in designing, location scouting, casting, shooting. You get to play a little bit of fantasy because when you think you've got something that's enough, you amp it up more.
When we were looking for a place to film, you know, there were a lot of possibilities. Marvel doesn't have its own lot yet. Maybe someday they will. And so we're looking for stage space that was large enough and in the Los Angeles area. And one of the places where a lot of films have shot is here at Playa Vista. And we thought it was really cool because this was the place that the Spruce Goose was originally built. It was Howard Hughes's old assembly factory and his headquarters for some time. You know, it wasn't lost on us that the legacy of Howard Hughes was, you know, sort of alive and well here. And Tony Stark is a little bit of the heir to the throne of the Howard Hughes reputation.
You know, for so long, the divisions were kept very separate. The film division out in Hollywood, which really was producing the films with other studios, was kept very, was separate from the publishing division where they make the comics, was kept separate from the animation division. And it was important to me to bring all those divisions together.
So there's multiple chambers, obviously, to this thing for the escape sequence.
Marvel Films invited a bunch of us out. You know, myself, Joe Quesada, Axel Alonso, our big editor brain trust, and a number of our key creators. It was a great thing even just to go out and be asked and to walk around the half-finished sets and see all the pre-production design. And, you know, it really makes you feel, just as a guy working at Marvel, that this really is our movie as opposed to a movie.
Is it too much of a shift to ask that he feels that he's fallen short of what his father's ideology?
I think that's what we're beginning to imply, and we should imply further with either his alcoholism, his tardiness, his womanizing.
Working in the comics for so long, and sometimes watching the movies and going, that wasn't quite right if they just stayed a little closer to the source material. So part of our being there was saying, guys, how far are we away from the source material? How do we steer it back? Is it okay to steer away this way? And how do we just make this the best possible movie?
And I think also for Pepper, she has to realize that the moment that kiss happens, she's the glue in his life. She, you know, without him, the whole thing derails.
We had two great writing teams on this film. Art Markham and Matt Holloway came on and did some early drafts for us and continued throughout the process on and off. And Mark Fergus and Hawk Otsby came on board as well. They had worked with John on a film he had developed at another studio, didn't end up moving forward.
Marvel Comics has been really fantastic about giving us the whole history, teaching us everything we could ever want to know about the characters, and then saying, you know, feel free to explore around those parameters.
Yeah, when you see Zathura, you'll love this right there.
We made a decision early to go with Stan Winston Studios to design with us the Iron Man suits.
That's going to be too kicky. Yeah. And that's too matty. I like the brush feeling.
Yeah, this is kind of
I'd like to say, gosh, everybody was just clamoring after us to do Iron Man, but the fact of the matter is that the minute we heard that Iron Man was being made, we went after it. We're all Iron Man fans. It was like the perfect thing for the studio. So we went after the show, and at just about the time that Jon Favreau was signed to actually direct it was when we took our first meeting with Marvel, and John was in that meeting.
This particular film was a little bit more interesting because there was already a design idea or a series of design ideas in place. They had conceptual drawings of Iron Man that fit a certain body proportion and a certain body type. So we had to inherit those and then bring them into our world and make them function. The big challenge was the fact that they hadn't cast anyone to be Iron Man.
And here it is. Here's the final.
And that's what we come to.
Here it is. Yeah. That's what we get for the amount we have to spend.
The journey you generally go through in the creation of a suit is you sit down with Stan Winston, his design team, our internal team, Favreau, the producers, and everyone starts with drawings and images, and you Photoshop and you get to sort of a 2D drawing. like a color drawing that you can hang up. That then gets moved to a modeling stage, to a 3D model, so you see a quick time of a model that turns. Then that goes to a clay maker, and then you see the first clay made of it, and it's something tangible now that you can touch and you can spin.
And we're convinced that a human head would actually fit in this thing, right?
The ears are right up inside, right up against the...
It's exciting. This is when you really get a sense of the movie coming together, when you start to see this. It's a bigger leap in some ways to go from an idea to this than to go from this to the actual movie.
And then there's generally a maquette that's made, which is a miniature desktop model of it, and it might be only 2 feet tall.
It's a work in progress, but it's coming along.
That's great.
Obviously, we don't have the wardrobe when we get with help.
And then you wait, and you know the next step is the suit. And it's the full-size, shootable, physical suit that a person's going to get into.
I've never made a movie of this size before or of this genre. I've always been a fan, but it's a daunting undertaking. The day I knew everything was going to be okay was the day that Robert Downey Jr. was attached to play Iron Man.
That is gorgeous.
What Kevin's going to do, and they're going to take a cast of your foot so that it's a very low relief strap.
Stan Winston's reputation and Shane, the guys on that team, I've worked with them before. Every time you go into their shop, you go, oh my God, and they did that, and they did that, and AI, and this and that, and you see a history of films that I grew up on. The reason that I'm playing Tony Stark, the reason that I'm involved in Iron Man, the reason that I'm so excited is I'm crazy about movies. That's why I wanted to become an actor. That's why I could cry watching Chud, Cannibalistic Humanoid Underground Dwellers. I buy into movies, I love it. I see The Fly, I don't care if that's Jeff Goldblum going, you know, I'm like, I'm in it. They're transporting, the fly's dying. I mean, I'm a sucker for this stuff.
Yeah, again, I'm just thrilled to land another gig with you. That's cool.
Me too, man.
Yeah. The best thing I can tell you about me is ultimately I just don't do anything. Well, I'm sick. I'm out of here.
All right.
Later.
Get a good night.
Stan, thanks.
Good to see you, Rob.
Okay.
I'll see you soon. I walk in like a fan because I say it humbly because I really don't do it. I did it when I started. Now I oversee it. Shane oversees it. Everybody. I just enjoy it. I come in and it's easy for me to say, wow, that's cool. Do more of that. You know, make sure my name is on the screen.
How many gags are you doing?
We're going to do the inclined one after this one, but this one right now you're more upright. We're just going to do a small blender section.
Hey, I don't like my little tummy there. I'm not doing all this core work for nothing. That's all I'm saying. Behold the mass. I'm beholding the
We could hold off on this part. We are building a prototype while we're going. We've never built an Iron Man suit before.
Dude, you're zooming in on my hammer right now, aren't you?
He's up on the hammer.
Kind of twisted parlor game's going down here.
And so you're given a launching gun, and then you have to hit the finish mark with the suit done. So it's not like we are ever able to kind of make one and then scrap it and make another one and make improvements and scrap that and make. We have to actually work it all out and deliver at the time we're supposed to.
John, don't. Johnny. Faster!
Thank you. Right now you're in the Stan Winston mold shop, the finishing shop. What you see behind me is where most of the parts are being modeled and parts are being painted. There's about 450 individual parts that make this suit. This is going to be the Mark II's chest. This is where the RT will go, and it's actually spray chrome metal, and it's been brushed. This is actually the process of putting in the rivets based on the design, and it's not really a polished rivet at all. It's just the illusion of a polished rivet. These are 2 pieces from the Mark III, and these are from our early test. This enormous calf that has sort of the accoutrement of like jet engines and things. But the foot goes in here, and then these panels had to be designed to slide and move. These are large sections of the Crimson Dynamo that are being made. This is a negative flexible mold, and these are just quickie temporary molds to pull out hard shells. What's interesting about what Trevor's painting is that this is a flexible paint for urethane that doesn't crack or buckle, and we have a lot of parts that are actually flexible. And it took a long time to get that to work. And this is Tim Nordella, who's mechanizing the Crimson Dynamo. There's a hatch that opens, revealing the sinister man who's inside. Eventually, it'll all be dressed like a very, very tight, and down below, like the cockpit of a dive vessel. But right now, these are just the outer shells and sort of the escape hatch of this particular thing here.